So was I originally planning on going to this event? No. Did my friend have any trouble convincing me to go? Absolutely not. So, Melbourne Museum, a go-to tourist attraction in Victoria, a good go-to for field trips and school holiday adventures. But what a lot of people don't realise is that they actually hold quite a lot of after-hour events. I have attended their nocturnal events in the past, which are 18 plus events. So that's when they have a DJ and a bar set up and they'll have various talks happening throughout the museum. But this is the first holiday themed event that I have been to. So first thing I want to note is that this event was sold out. So the crowd could be a little bit intense at times, but there wasn't really any issues moving around. I saw quite a lot of people successfully using mobility aids and prams, and I had a friend with me who regularly needs seating available, and we never had an issue finding any for her. So I think they did a pretty good job calculating the max capacity of the building. If you are a member of the museum, like myself, tickets were $32. If you are not a member, they were $39 for adult and $25 for child tickets. There was also VIP tickets, which were $150 for non-members and $120 for members. I did not get VIP, but according to the website, it included a private bar, complimentary cocktail on arrival, a surprise gift, a bespoke entertainment, and access to the museum experts all night, which is a bit vague for me to drop that kind of money on an event. And also I tend to spend these events wandering around everywhere, so I feel like a private area would be wasted on me, but the option is there if you want it. Now, coming up to the museum, they had actually closed off the main entrance to the building and had set up a different entrance on the east. Cherry, you just landed on my foot. That kind of hurt, bub. You're heavy. They had actually closed off the main entrance to the building and had a separate entrance on the east side of the building next to Nicholson Street. And we rode about 6:30, and there was a pretty decent queue to go in actually, but it really didn't take us long to get through it. Maybe 5 minutes once we were actually in the queue. We did mess around and take some photos out of the front before joining the queue. It didn't matter, we powered through the queue really quickly. They did have a bubble machine set up near the entrance, but the better one was one bit further in that had the bubbles filled with smoke. This is far superior. These are now the only bubble machines I'll accept for a spooky event. They were so good. They smelled kind of weird though. If you pop the bubbles, it was a weird smell. I don't know what they use. Now, through the entrance they had set up, it funneled us into a haunted forest. So their haunted forest was trees with red lighting, and they had put giant eyeballs into the trees, which honestly simple but effective. It actually looked really good. When you go through that, it leads into the main lobby, and they had bat chandeliers and a projection on the ceiling that had like bats flying overhead. Like, honestly, for decor, I give them pretty high points. It looked great. The two best things about the lobby though, I'll start with the musicians. So they had 3 acts on rotation. So they had the Night Terrors, which are dark electronica, and then they had one of their members as a solo act, as a solo theremin player, Miles Brown. And then they had a DJ Blackscale, playing in between those. And they did a very good job. They fit the theme really well. DJ Blackscale, I looked him up when I was writing the script for this, and he has quite an impressive resume. He's played a lot of really large events in in Melbourne. He's very much a popular corporate DJ, and I'm pretty sure I've seen him play before because he's just done so many events. Now, the other best thing about the lobby, and my favorite thing of the entire night, were the giant bug puppets. So the bug puppets were actually commissioned by Melbourne Museum back in 2017 for their Bug Lab exhibition, which closed years ago, so I'm so glad they still have a use for them because I love them so much. So they had a couple of Japanese honeybees, and the puppeteers had them on long sticks so they could be like flying above the crowd. And when you got up close, you could hear buzzing, which I assume the puppeteers were wearing sound packs of some kind, like some sort of speaker system. And when the crowd did thin out a bit more, they did interact a bit easier. When my friend was filming them, they got right up close to their phone, so that's really fun. But the one that brought me the most joy was the giant bombardier beetle. So this was actually quite an impressive build. Like, it was massive. You could see the frame it was built on and the puppeteer's legs underneath, but I personally like it when you can see the puppeteer. It doesn't break the illusion for me. Probably made it easier for some people if you had a bug phobia to interact with it. Oh, he's coming. Oh Lord, he's coming. From what I can tell, these bug puppets were created through a collaboration between Magic Lantern Studios and Sanctum Theatre. And looking this up, it looks like you can hire them for events, which is very dangerous knowledge. If I ever host anything big enough, these are the first things I'm booking. As for the rest of the event, they did have a lot of the museum exhibits closed off, I assume for crowd management and security reasons, though they did still have open the dinosaur exhibit, the bugs, the gemstone and mineral section, and upstairs where they have Melbourne history and Phar Lap on display. This is a little bit of a side note, but if you do not like seeing taxidermy or mounted insects, this is probably not the museum for you. There's no judgment, it's not for everyone, but speaking of, I am about to show some mounted insects and taxidermy on screen. So if you want to keep watching but don't want to see it, you can either treat this like a podcast and just listen but don't look, or you can skip to this timestamp instead. Now, in my experience, the usual Nocturne events have various presentations that they do twice a night. So the talks are done by various experts and they change each event. But the thing is, you have to arrive exactly when they open if you want to get to all of them. The last one I went to, I arrived 20 minutes late, missed the first presentation, and then that threw off the entire timeline. I was running around like a headless chook the entire night and couldn't stay for Q&As, missed one presentation near the end entirely, and missed half of another one. It didn't quite work out. So if you go to one of the normal Nocturne events and you want to hear all of the talks, go as soon as it opens. So for the Halloween event, instead of only doing scheduled talks, they had a couple of scheduled shows, but for the most part they had various stations set up across the museum where they had tables with various things you can look at and relevant experts standing there happy to answer questions until 8:30 p.m. And that was a good, considering the huge crowd and the fact there were so many kids, this was probably a better way of doing it to accommodate, because for talks you wouldn't be able to fit everyone who was interested into one space. You just wouldn't be able to do it. So there were quite a lot of insect and arachnid displays. The first one I actually came across was one specifically for prey catching strategies of spiders. Though this one was always crowded, I did not get a chance to talk to the expert in charge of this one. I tried not to stay at the stalls for too long if they were crowded, because I wanted them to be able to talk to everyone. It's a big crowd. Especially I wanted the kids to be able to ask questions. Though I did get to have a pretty long talk with the guy in charge of the tarantulas, including finding out some horrific facts about how to identify some of the species. But yeah, it's Halloween, that's what you do. You learn horrifying facts about spiders, apparently. I did get really excited at the taxidermied bat display because they had a southern bent-wing bat on display, and I have read a lot of research papers on the eastern bent-wing bat. So the poor expert was stuck with me asking so many questions about the similarities between the two. I kind of apologize for that. I was just very enthusiastic. So I didn't get much of a chance to look at the wasps because it was always just so crowded when I went past. There was also apparently a creepy doll one, which I completely missed. I did not find it until after it packed up. And according to the website, there was also an anglerfish and a vampire squid one that I just did not find at all. I suspect they were either hidden by the crowd or I was just distracted by the scavenger hunt to notice them, which is actually what happened with the creepy doll one. Speaking of the scavenger hunt, so they give you cards at the entrance for you to collect stamps on, and then you can find all these different spots throughout the museum where they have the signs set up with the person holding the stamp, and they also give you an info card and some kind of confectionery. I actually did the scavenger hunt later in the evening because the queues for them were really long at the start, and I kind of zoomed around and got them all. But like, even if they did have a bit of a queue, they actually moved pretty quickly. They had a really good system set up. So the info card, the stamp, and the confectionery, they all tried to match the theme of the station. So the black cat one had a cat face stamp, a info card with a black cat that said cats cannot taste sweet things, and the candy for it was a black cat licorice. So some of the other candy matches they did was the snake stamp had a snake gummy lolly, the bee had honeycomb chocolate, the spider had like a marshmallow eyeball thing, but the poison one, I'm not sure if it was because it was the end of the night or if it was because it was the final square on the scavenger hunt, but they just gave me a giant scoop of the bucket of candy, which was a nice little jackpot for me. Though honestly, I was mostly in it for the info cards. They just felt like a nice little collectible item for me, and I might use them for an art project or a scrapbook or something in the future. Who knows, I just wanted them. So the last thing I'm going to touch on is the scheduled talks. So the first one we went to was about true crime events that happened in the Little Lon district of Melbourne, which, if you know anything about Melbourne history, there's a lot of stories to cherry pick from, that's for sure. But they had two sessions, so they had one at 7:15 p.m. and another at 8:15. And they had a little seating area set up in the back corner of the Melbourne History exhibit. And it was a nice little corner, and they had a portable speaker and microphone set up for the speaker as well. So it was honestly like a nice little setup. The second talk, however, was set up in the middle of the room and didn't have any seating. It was either standing or sitting on the floor. Those were the only two options. And my friend was running very low on spoons and had to sit elsewhere, so did end up missing this one because of that. They had 3 time slots for this one, so 9:30, 10, and 10:30. And it wasn't obvious where this one was going to be held at first. I asked some staff and they just said to hang around in the general area. And eventually someone came out with a speaker and microphone and said they'd be starting soon, and to like kind of gather in the middle of the room. So that kind of sucked. They probably should have had some sort of arrangement for people who couldn't really stand for very long. So yeah, that wasn't the best. I ended up sitting on the floor because I do struggle to stand in one spot for very long periods. This talk was about ghost stories and haunted locations in Melbourne CBD. There was a disclaimer at the start saying some of these stories wouldn't really be suitable for children under 12, though they did keep the details of why there might be ghosts pretty tame. I will say very good job to the two presenters for this one, because they had taken on some characters for this talk and they were so engaging that I did not even occur to me to film B-roll. I was just so sucked into what they were doing, so good job. Some final notes: there were some kid-only activities that I obviously did not participate in as an adult that did not have children with me. There was, according to the website, there were campfire stories and science demos. I did not even try to look for them, no idea what they looked like. Oh, and there was also a cafeteria with themed food and drinks, but I did not buy anything from here, so I can't actively review that part of the event. But it was very popular. I think they sold out of a lot. So that was Halloween Tricks, Treats, Eats and Beats at Melbourne Museum. Would you attend this event if they held it again? Have you been to any of the other nighttime events at the Melbourne Museum? Do you happen to know other museums that host various holiday theme events throughout the year? Please let me know. I am very curious. I like to attend these things. But yeah. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Bye. Yeah, sweetie? Yeah, what's wrong? What's wrong, baby? What you doing? Okay.